Namaskar. Welcome to the fifth day of the year-long lecture series being organized by Guwahati University on Indian knowledge system through online medium. We have with us our resource person, Professor Diganta Vishwa Sharma sir, Professor of Practice, Dibrugarh University, Sahitya Academy Translation Awardee, and a motivational speaker. We are thankful to him for dedicating his time to deliver lectures on such a vast wealth of knowledge throughout a year. I welcome our respected resource person to deliver today's speech and as well as all the participants here, and I wish that this session will be a great one. Now the mic is over to our resource person. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, and I welcome all esteemed participants to this fifth session of the year-long lecture series being organized by Guwahati University on Indian knowledge system through the lens of Sri Aurobindo. So we propose to cover altogether 10 subjects, which has already been shared with you in the group. And the first segment is the definitions of IKS, then idea of India, then India's idea of nation, and India's idea of nationalism. These four things will be taken up in this first segment. And we have already started our discussions on the definitions, what constitute IKS. And in the process, we have discussed and we have seen there are three words in the very term. There are three words in the very term Indian knowledge system, in the very phrase. And I suppose this system we need not to discuss further. System or process you know, but nowadays Indian knowledge system is translated into Indian language not as Bharatiya Gyan Pranali. Now it is rather translated as Bharatiya Gyan Parampara. So if it is Bharatiya Gyan Parampara, then we have to term it as Indian knowledge tradition. So, but the very phrase has three words. One word about process or tradition I need not to discuss, I suppose. And the remaining two words, one is Indian and one is knowledge. We have already discussed few things about India. We have already discussed few things about India, and we will continue to discuss. And the very idea of India, the India's idea of nationalism will be taken up comprehensively. Right now, we are giving only a glimpse of the word Indian. And in that respect, we have already discussed that the soul of India is composed of three elements, three powers rather. The soul of India is composed of three powers, three elements. And what are those three elements? We have already discussed that the soul of India, the very soul of India, is composed by three powers. Firstly, the power of spirituality. The second is power of unimaginably prolific creativeness, that is to say vitality. And the third one is India's truly prodigious intellectuality. So these are the three powers the soul of India is composed of. The power of spirituality, power of vitality, that is to say creativeness, India's energy of life, that is to say vitality, and the third power is intellectuality. And we have already discussed few lines from the writings of the Maharishi with respect to India's truly prodigious intellectuality. And thereafter, we did discuss about India's three ages. And further, these three ages has been explained as first the three periods. India's we have first discussed India's three periods. Three periods have further been explained as 5 ages or 5 epochs. So then, what are those India's three periods? First is that the first period was luminous with the discovery of the spirit. Discovery of the spirit was India's first period. It is marked by India's first period of history was marked by discovery of spirit. And what is discovery of spirit? We have already discussed. Followed by discovery of dharma, the second period. Discovery of dharma, that is to say, the age of dharma and the age of intellect or the age of action. And then followed by the third period, which is the elaboration of the first simpler formation of the Shastras into detail. Elaboration of the first simpler formation of the Shastras into detail. These are India's three periods. These three periods were further discussed or further explained as India's 5 ages or 5 epochs. So first age is spiritual age. India started with the spiritual age, followed by India's age of dharma, that is to say the age of intellect. Then it was followed by classical age of Sanskrit literature. Classical age of Sanskrit literature. Then the classical age of Sanskrit literature was followed by post-classical age, or you may call it Purana-tantric stage of religion. This Purana-tantric stage of religion, or you may call it post-classical age, was followed by the later Vaishnavism. So those three periods further explained as these further explained into 5 ages. Then these 5 ages has been discussed into few categories of vision of India. India's vision of India. So the first vision was the age of the spirit, followed by the age of the dharma, then the classical age, then the medieval saints, then the later Vaishnavism, then the evening of decline, then the ascending movement. Those 7 visions, the visions in those 5 periods have also been discussed. Now we shall be first discussing why Sri Aurobindo has said that spirituality is the master key of Indian mind. Why Sri Aurobindo has said so, that spirituality is the master key of India. And after that, we will be basically discussing few excerpts from the writings of Swami Vivekananda, Sri Aurobindo, as well as his spiritual collaborator D. Mother. So, and after that, we will move on to the second word of the phrase Indian knowledge system, that is to say, the knowledge portion. What is knowledge in the profounder Indian sense of the word jnana? But the knowledge will first be discussed in relation to information and wisdom. What is information? What is knowledge? And what is wisdom? And what is knowledge in the profounder Indian sense of the word jnana? So let us first discuss on with certain excerpts from the writings of Swami Vivekananda, Sri Aurobindo, as well as from the writings of the mother. And who is the mother? The spiritual collaborator of Sri Aurobindo, whom we adore as the incarnation of the Supreme Divine Mother. So, Swami Vivekananda, according to Swami Vivekananda, what is the condition of our national life? Of our means, what is the condition of India's national life? He is very categorical. Swamiji is very categorical. Swamiji says, the only condition of national life. There is only one condition of national life. And what is that one condition of national life? And he emphasized that of awakened and vigorous national life. What is the condition of vigorous national life? what is the condition of awakened national life? What is the only condition of national life? Vivekananda says, is the conquest of the world. Is the conquest of the world, not by sword. Vivekananda says, and he is very emphatic about it, is the conquest of the world by Indian thought. So this is the only condition of our national life. The conquest of the world by Indian thought. This is the only condition of national life, of awakened and of vigorous national life. So then, what is our mission of nationalism? Nobody has defined, except Sri Aurobindo. What is the mission of our nationalism? We frequently talk about nationalism. If we are asked by any foreigner, what is your mission of your nationalism? What is the mission of Indian nationalism? You may reject it, you may accept it. It is up to your wisdom and it is up to your liberty. But according to Maharishi, according to Mahabiplobi, according to Mahakavi, Mahajogi, Maharishi Sri Aurobindo, he is very categorical and it's a very precise definition. There is nothing confusion. Maharishi says, to recover Indian thought, to recover Indian thought in all respect, to recover Indian thought, to recover Indian character, to recover Indian perceptions, to recover Indian energy, that is to say, India's vitality, a vitality of the ages, Indian energy, to recover Indian greatness, and to solve the problems that perplex the world. We have to solve the problems that perplex the world. To solve the problems that perplex the world in an Indian spirit. We are physician of the soul of human being. We have to solve all problems that perplex the world. This is mission of our nationalism. This is the mission of our nationalism. Why? Last session we discussed, because India is the guru of the nations, says Sri Aurobindo. The physician of the human soul in its profounder melodies. She is destined once more to new mold the life of the world and restore the peace of the human spirit. But Swaraj is the necessary condition of her work, and before she can do the work, she must fulfill the condition. So Swaraj is our condition. Without Swaraj, we cannot solve the problems that perplex the world. World in an Indian spirit and from the Indian standpoint. From the Indian standpoint. This, in our view, is the mission of India's nationalism. We have no other purpose of nationalism. So to recover Indian thought, to recover Indian thought, Indian character, Indian perceptions, Indian energy, India's greatness, and to solve the problems that perplex the world in an Indian spirit and from the Indian standpoint. This, in our view, is the mission of nationalism. Let me speak in Assamese. The Bharatiya Sinta, Bharatiya Boikhisto, Bharatiya Bodh, Bharatiya Bhakti, Bharatiya Mahanubhavatar Punoruddhar. আৰু ভাৰতীয় প্ৰকৃতি তথা ভাৰতীয় দৃষ্টিভংগীৰে সেইসমূহ সমস্যাৰ সমাধান যিসমূহে জগতক বিভ্ৰান্ত কৰিছে, বিবুধিত পেলাইছে, এয়াই আমাৰ দৃষ্টিত জাতীয়তাবাদৰ জীৱন ব্ৰত, এয়াই আমাৰ লক্ষ্য. This is the sense of India becoming Vishwaguru. Guru is to solve the problems that perplex the world. We have to become worthy of Vishwaguru. So this was India's mission of nationalism. Then Swami Vivekananda says, which first deludes the land, not with the idea of socialism, not with political ideas, not even with cultural ideas, not even with religious ideas. Vivekananda says, first deluge the land. India should be flooded. Let first deluge the land with spiritual ideas. Then other ideas will follow. Because the soul of India is composed of three elements: the power of spirituality, power of vitality, and the power of India's truly prodigious intellectuality. Vivekananda continues, before flooding India with socialistic or political ideas, first deluge the land with spiritual ideas. He was very categorical. You may agree, you may reject Swami Vivekananda. This is up to your wisdom. But this is the voice of soul of India. Vivekananda is considered to be soul of India. Sri Aurobindo, according to Kavi Guru Rabindranath addressed Sri Aurobindo as the voice incarnation of nation soul. Swadesh Attar Bani Murti. Swadesh Atmar Bani Murti. And Vivekananda considered to be soul of India himself. Vivekananda himself says, I am condensed India. I am the condensed India. Then Sri Aurobindo says, what is India's politics? Sri Aurobindo says, there is only one politics of India. And when he says it, when we were very much subjugated under British colonialism in the year 1911, what he said? He said, spirituality is India's only politics. We don't have any other politics. Spirituality is India's only politics. Then second sentence he says, the fulfillment of Sanatana Dharma is only Swaraj. So what is the meaning of Swaraj? The fulfillment of Sanatana Dharma, the eternal religion. And what is India's only politics? The spirituality is India's only politics. Only politics. The fulfillment of Sanatana Dharma, it's only Swaraj. Then I have already said, Sri Aurobindo says that spirituality is the master key of Indian mind. There is no second master key. If you want to know India, if you want to know India's knowledge system, anything about India, the spirituality is the foundation. If you ignore this element, you will never be able to get into the heart of India's anything Indian. Because this is the very foundation, this is the master key. With this key, you shall be able to enter into the hearts of India's soul. So spirituality is indeed the master key of the Indian mind. The sense of the infinite is native to it. Then Sri Aurobindo says, this is not only master key of Indian mind. A spiritual ideal has always been the characteristics, idea and aspiration of India. এই আদৰ্শৰ পৰা ভাৰতক পৃথিৱীৰ কোনো শক্তিয়ে কেতিয়াও বিস্তৃত কৰিব নোৱাৰে, আনকি আধুনিক বিজ্ঞানসন্মত জগতেও নোৱাৰে। ই সুপ্ত হৈ থাকিব পাৰে, ই পুনৰ জাগ্ৰত হ'ব। Because this is India's first power, primary power. I am not talking about religious power. I am talking about spirituality. Spirituality is radically and fundamentally different from the word religion. And what spiritually actually, or what spirituality precisely means, we will be taking up. We will be taking up at an appropriate stage. So a spiritual ideal has always been the characteristics, idea, and aspiration of India, says Sri Aurobindo. Then, let me quote one very important statement from Vivekananda. And in my research, this is the last statement of Vivekananda on India. This is the last statement of India, last statement of Vivekananda on India. Perhaps I am using the word perhaps. Why? He pronounced this, he uttered this statement at about 5:30 p.m. 4th July 1902. The Mahasamadhi took place at 9 p.m. If something took place in between 5:30 and 9 p.m., I am personally not aware. And this thought and this utterance is not included in his complete works. In his complete works, it is there in separate book, of course published by Ramakrishna Mission. So, what is Swami Vivekananda's last utterance on India? He was talking about India's immortality. But how? On about 5:30 p.m., 4th July 1902, just 3 hours before his Mahasamadhi. If any statement he made between 5:30 and 9 p.m., I am not aware. And that is why I am using the word perhaps. So he says, he was talking to Premananda, his fellow disciple, his Guru Bhai. So India is immortal. It came from his mouth automatically. Vivekananda says, India is immortal. Immediately he puts a condition. He says, India is immortal if she persists in her search for God. That is to say, if she continues to search for God, then only India is immortal. And then he says, but if she goes in for politics and social conflict, she will die. She will die. Because spirituality is India's master key. Spirituality is India's only politics. The fulfillment of Sanatana Dharma, it's only Swaraj. We have to become the physician of human soul. We have to become Vishwaguru. We have to solve the problems that perplex the world by an Indian spirit, from Indian standpoint. This is the mission of our nationalism. But Sri Aurobindo, in his maiden Sanskrit book, the title of the book was it is a poetry book which was seized by British government, and it was released much after his Mahasamadhi. It was released, I think, only in the year 1984. 1984. It is titled as Bhavani Bharati. Bhavani Bharati. India was addressed by him as Bhavani, the Shakti. And in that poetry book, the Mother India is one of the chief characters. Like Bankim Chandra's Anandamath. And then Mother India says to her children in verse number 12. Let me tell the only English translation, because in Sanskrit, let me speak. In Sanskrit, Mother India says, Bhuputraka Sanatananang Tridasa Priyanang Bharatanang Mata Asmi Yan Vipaksha Vidi Nasayutu No Sakta Putra Kala Yama Ba Opino. This means, I am the mother, O child, of the Bharatas. I am the mother of the Bharatas. And who are the Bharatas? Sri Aurobindo says through the mouth of Mother India. The eternal people, Bharatas are the eternal people, beloved of the gods, whom neither hostile fate, nor time, nor death has a power to destroy. This is the assurance given by Sri Aurobindo. Sri Aurobindo এই নিশ্চয়তা আমাক প্ৰদান কৰি থৈ কৈছে যে প্ৰতিকূল ভাগ্য, যম আৰু কাল, এই তিনটাৰ এটাইও ভাৰতবৰ্ষক বিনাশ কৰিব নোৱাৰে। তেওঁৰ ভৱানী ভাৰতী কিতাপত কোনে কৈছে? স্বয়ং ভাৰত মাই কৈছে, ভাৰত মা এটা চৰিত্ৰ, চিফ কেৰেক্টাৰ, কৈছে আই এম দি মাদাৰ ও চাইল্ড অফ দি ভাৰতজ, the eternal people beloved of the gods, whom neither hostile fate, nor time, nor death has a power to destroy. But Vivekananda gives us guarantee of India's immortality with a condition. And what was that condition? If she persists in her search for God, then only India is immortal. But if India goes in for social and political conflict, she will die. And now, let me tell you few excerpts from the writings of the mother. Mother says, India's true destiny is to be the guru of the world. This has also been said by Sri Aurobindo. India's true destiny. Whether India will welcome this destiny, the modern India will welcome this destiny or not, it's up to modern India. But India's true destiny, according to spiritual giant, is to be the guru of the world. And what's the sense of the guru of the world? We are to solve the problems that perplex the world by an Indian spirit from Indian standpoint. This is the mission of our nationalism and nothing else. We do not want to conquer other lands. We want to conquer, but with our thought, not by sword. And then mother says about future of India. Mother says, the future of India is very clear. The future of India is very clear. India is the guru of the world. The future structure of the world depends on India. What a brilliant statement. The future structure of the world depends on India. India is the living soul. India is not a dead soul. India is a living soul. India is incarnating the spiritual knowledge in the world. The government of India ought to recognize the significance of India in this sphere and plan their action accordingly. And then mother says, India is the spiritual leader of the world. India is the spiritual leader of the world. India ought to be the spiritual leader of the world. Inside, she has the capacity. Inside, she has the capacity. But outside, for the moment, there is still much to do for her to become actually the spiritual leader of the world. We have many works to do before we become the spiritual leader of the world. Because right now, we have almost abandoned spirituality, even by the nationalists. We don't have any care for India's primary power, the power of spirituality. We are busy with religions. We are concerned with religion, not with spirituality. Now, let me quote the most important statement of Maharishi, which she made on 14th August 1947 through Tiruchirappalli radio station. It was an all India radio message broadcast on 14th August 1947 from Pondicherry. It was just part of his whole speech. I am quoting a small part of his speech. And in that part, he made clear India's future agenda. What he says, let me quote. For I have always held, when just before India's independence, on 14th August, he had the courage to utter, for I have always held and said that India was arising, not to serve her material interest only. Then why was India arising? For I have always held and said that India was arising, not to serve her own material interest only, to achieve expansion, greatness, power, and prosperity. You are surprised. You are shocked. Because whatever we have heard and learned about nationalism, we have learned from Western I mean, we have learned only the idea of Western nationalism. This is not India's nationalism. Maharishi says, not to serve our own material interest only, to achieve expansion, greatness, power, and prosperity. Though these two she must not neglect. He says, we do not need to neglect these things, but we are not arising only for our material interest only. Then why we are arising? And certainly not like others to acquire domination of other peoples, but to live also for God. And what Vivekananda says, India is immortal if she insists, if she persists in her search for God. And here Maharishi says, but to live also for God and the world. We are arising to live for the God. We are arising for the world as a helper and leader of the whole human race. This is the mission of our Indian nationalism. Sri Aurobindo uttered just before India's independence on 14th August 1957 through an all India radio message broadcast by Tiruchirappalli radio station. For I have always held and said that India was arising not to serve her own material interest only, to acquire expansion, greatness, power, and prosperity, though these two she must not neglect, and certainly not like others to acquire domination of other peoples, but to live also for God and the world as a helper and the leader of the whole human race. And let me conclude this discussion by quoting another excerpt from Vivekananda. He says, up India, and conquer the world with your spirituality. This was the emphatic appeal of Vivekananda to his people. Up India and conquer the world with your spirituality. So now let me move on to the second word of the phrase Indian knowledge system, the word knowledge. But I will be discussing the word knowledge in two contexts. The word knowledge in the context of information and wisdom. What is information? What is knowledge? And what is wisdom? And after that, knowledge in the profounder Indian sense of the word jnana. In the profounder Indian sense of the word jnana. And I have taken text for this first section from the writings of another great Indian, late Kirit Joshi. Who was Kirit Joshi? An IS officer of 1954 batch. But after joining, he resigned from his service after 2 years and became an ashramite. But in the year 1972, even after his resignation, Indira Gandhi, the then Prime Minister of India, made him India's Special Secretary to the Education Department. And during this period, he became committee members of UNESCO in many occasions. And till his Mahasamadhi. His Mahasamadhi took place, I think, just 6-7 years ago. He served as the educational advisor to the Chief Minister of Gujarat. When our present Honorable Prime Minister was the Chief Minister of Gujarat, Kirit Joshi was his educational advisor. In my opinion, Kirit Joshi is the man behind India's NEP 2020. Though he was discharging his duty from Pondicherry because he is also an ashramite. He was also an ashramite. But till his Mahasamadhi, he acted as the advisor to the Gujarat Chief Minister. I have taken few things from his writings, and the book is And the book is, the name of the book or title of the book is A National Agenda for Education. A National Agenda for Education, page 51, 52. If you search on the Google, you will find hundreds of videos of Kirit Joshi. He was a sage. He was a sage. He was an expert of Vedic vision. He is considered to be an acclaimed educationist of the world, though many of us may not know him. So he says, and we also say, that there is difference between information and wisdom, information and knowledge. But what is precisely that difference? What is information and what is knowledge? But we frequently speak, we frequently tell, we frequently proclaim that information is not knowledge, knowledge is not information. But then what is the difference? He says it is widely acknowledged that there is distinction between information and knowledge. Indeed, there is difference between information and knowledge. But what is that difference? I do not know whether any educationists have ever explained the difference between information and the knowledge, or define the word information. Kirit Joshi defined information, and he says, for information consists of any article that is presented to our awareness and which is grasped as such. So somebody has shown you a river and he said to you, this is river. That is to say, an article is being presented to your awareness and you have grasped it as such. Yes, this is river. This is information only. For information consists of any article that is presented to our awareness and which is grasped as such. যেতিয়া এটা বস্তু আমাৰ চেতনাৰ সন্মুখত উপস্থাপন কৰা হয় আৰু ঠিক যি ধৰণে উপস্থাপন কৰিছে আমি সেই ধৰণেই গ্ৰহণ কৰিছো যে দিস ইজ ৰিভাৰ, এইখন এখন নদী হয়, মই গ্ৰহণ কৰিছো এইখন এখন নদী। But what is river? What is difference between hill and river? This is not right now concern for me because this is only an information. It is presented to my awareness and I have grasped at such. But then what is knowledge? While knowledge implies awareness of fact, information is also presentation of facts to our awareness. Knowledge is also presentation of facts to our awareness. But there is a difference. What is the difference? While knowledge implies awareness of facts in their relationship, in their context, in their significance, and in their meaning, as also intellectual and critical reflection thereon. So when I will be presented not only with the fact, but it will be presented before me or before my awareness in their relationship, in their context, in their significance, and in their meaning. That is to say, this is river, this is not hill. This is elephant, this is not tiger. This is Delhi, the capital of India. This is not Bombay, the commercial capital of India. So when some facts will be presented before my awareness in their interrelationship, in their context, in their significance, as well as in their meaning, then it is called knowledge. It is not mere information now. because I know what is river. But in the first place, just the article was presented to me, presented to my awareness, and introduced to me as river, and I have grasped it as such. What is river? What is pond? What is ocean? I have no concern. What is hill? But knowledge implies awareness of same facts, but in their interrelationship, in their context, in their significance, as well as in their meaning. Not only that, there must be intellectual reflection thereon. There must be critical reflection. So facts presented to awareness, to our awareness, in their interrelationship, in their context, in their significance, in their meaning, plus intellectual and critical reflection thereon. This is what constitutes knowledge. But in Indian tradition, knowledge is something more. Knowledge is not presentation of facts to our awareness in their relationship, in their context, in their significance, in their meaning, plus intellectual and critical reflection thereon. This is there, but this is not the only significance or only meaning of knowledge. In Indian sense, knowledge, the word knowledge is applied to a state. State of what? State of our consciousness. Knowledge in Indian tradition is applied to a state that lies beyond the intellectual activity of the mind. That does not mean that India do not recognize awareness of facts in their interrelationship, in their context, in their significance, in their meaning, plus critical and intellectual thereon as not knowledge. It is knowledge. India accepts it. But there is something beyond. In Indian tradition, the word knowledge is applied to a state. Applied to a state that lies beyond the intellectual activity of the mind. So first you have to know knowledge is beyond intellectual activity of the mind. Intellectual activity of the mind. Knowledge then means, so applied to a state means, knowledge then means a luminous growth. নলেজৰ অৰ্থ হল এটা অৱস্থাক বুজায় যিটো আমাৰ বৌদ্ধিক মনৰ অতীত। তাৰ অৰ্থ কি? নলেজ মানে এটা বিকাশ, এ গ্ৰোথ, বিকাশ। কিহলৈকে কৈছে? নলেজ দেন মিন্স এ luminous growth into the higher state of being. Higher state of being. I can rise to higher state of my being. This is not the only state of my being. I can rise to higher and higher state of being. So knowledge then means a luminous growth. There must be a change of consciousness. There must be a rebirth in order to be called knowledgeable. Knowledge means a progress, a growth, a luminous growth, a state beyond intellectual activity of the mind. And what is the process? By the outshining of the light of the integral reality. I have to outshine the light of the integral reality. And what is integral reality? Not the one-sided reality, but the integral reality. And what is integral reality? If I am to explain integral reality, In India, you have perhaps heard about one statement that Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya. This is one side. This is one aspect of the reality. But Maharishi says, Jagat is Satya, Brahma is Satya, Jagat himself is the Brahman. Jagat itself is the Brahman. Jagat itself is the manifestation of Brahman. Another idea of integral reality. Divine is there in the transcendental world. Divine is also in the universe. Divine is also within me. So, outshining of the light of the integral reality. So, these three states of divinity will have to be taken into consideration. The transcendental divinity, the universal divinity, and the individual divinity. Then it will be called integral reality. So, then, in order to qualify a presentation of facts to our awareness, to be knowledge, what we need, it must be beyond the intellectual activity of the mind. First thing. Second thing, knowledge implies a state that lies beyond the intellectual activity of the mind. Third thing, knowledge then means a growth, not only ordinary growth, by the luminous growth into the higher state of being. What is the meaning of higher state of being? The present state of being is not the only state of my being. I can rise to higher and higher state of being. I can even become Brahman. Right now, I am portion eternal of the Brahman. I can become Brahman. India claims. You may agree, you may not agree. That's a separate issue. But India claims. Right now you are Nara. You can become Naruttam. You can even become Narayan. Asatu ma sadgamaya, tamasu ma jyotirgamaya, mrittur ma amritam gamaya. This amritam gamaya is nothing but becoming Brahman. So, a luminous growth into the higher state of being. I have to reborn into higher consciousness. Then only I will be called to have knowledge. Otherwise, those will be information only. Just mere intellectual information. And what is the process? By the outshining of the light of the integral reality. And what is integral reality? I have briefly described, in a very, very briefly described. If I have the occasion, I will further explain the meaning of integral reality. Then another thing about knowledge. Then knowledge means not an information. If it is a luminous growth, if it implies a state beyond intellectual activities of the mind, then it is a luminous growth into the higher state of being, and then it is also a light, not information. If this definition of knowledge is valid, then knowledge is also a light. Asatuma sadgamaya, tamasuma jyotirgamaya. Life has to be a journey from darkness into light. So then knowledge is a light. I have to become knowledgeable. My consciousness has to change. I have to rise to higher state of being. Otherwise, those are mere information. Those means the fact presented to my awareness, even if in their relationship, interrelationship, even in their context. But it is in Indian tradition, by which we grow into our true being, another dimension. First, we said that then knowledge is a luminous growth into higher state of being. Now, another aspect, then knowledge is also a light. And what we do with this light? With this light, we grow into our true being. then my present state of being is a false one. Yes, it is the external being is the creation of the nature only. I have the true being inside me. To grow into the true being, I need a luminous growth. I need a light, and knowledge is the light. Through knowledge, I grow into my true being, but not the knowledge by which we increase our information and our intellectual riches. We cannot grow into our true being with intellectual knowledge or information and our intellectual riches. I have to get a light. I have to grow. I have to grow into the higher state of being. I have to rise to a state beyond the intellectual activity of the mind. Then only I can grow into my true being, not by intellectual information or intellectual riches. So this is a very, very precise meaning of the word knowledge in Indian sense. But Kirit Joshi says that does not mean India rejects intellectual knowledge, the idea of intellectual knowledge. India does not reject the idea of intellectual knowledge. India does recognize. And India says the Indian tradition admits that there are different kind of knowledge. Scientific knowledge, psychological knowledge, philosophical knowledge, ethical knowledge, aesthetic, worldly knowledge, and practical knowledge. Because in those cases, facts are presented to our information in their interrelationship, in their context, in their significance, plus intellectual and critical reflection thereon. So India recognized other forms of knowledge also. But in true sense, true Indian sense, knowledge means a state that lies beyond the intellectual activity of the mind. Knowledge means a luminous growth into the higher state of being. I have to become a different person after getting the knowledge. If I remain the old person, then I am not a knowledgeable man. I have to be sensed by the power of knowledge. If I am not sensed, if I am not rising to higher state of being, that I am not getting knowledge. But that does not mean that India does reject intellectual knowledge. On the contrary, India admits that there are different kinds of knowledge: scientific knowledge, psychological knowledge, philosophical knowledge, ethical knowledge, aesthetic knowledge, worldly knowledge, and practical knowledge. Even India emphasizes, it is emphasized that these forms of knowledge also help us to grow. It is not that the scientific knowledge, psychological knowledge, philosophical knowledge, ethical, aesthetic knowledge do not help us to grow. This type of knowledge also help us to grow, but there is a difference. And what is that difference? This intellectual knowledge, this scientific knowledge, ethical knowledge, aesthetic knowledge help us to grow in the becoming, not in the being. Now then, what is the difference between becoming and the being? Being means in my true being. So there is a being, supreme being. The true knowledge helps us to grow in the true being, in the supreme being. I can even become Brahman. And what is the meaning of becoming? You can understand in this context, the meaning of the becoming is expression, manifestation. So becoming is this universe is called becoming. In Sanskrit, it is called Sambhuti, Abhivakti. expression, manifestation. Or you can straightly say this apparent manifestation, apparent world, apparent universe is called becoming. So all this worldly knowledge, aesthetic knowledge, moral knowledge, ethical knowledge, scientific knowledge, practical knowledge, psychological knowledge help us to grow in the manifestation. এই বিশ্ব প্ৰপঞ্চৰ মাজত আমাক বিকশিত হোৱাত সহায় কৰে, but not in the true being, not in the supreme being. There is a being, this is the becoming. Because India does not consider this universe to be a creation created by the divine. According to India, divine is the being, and this is becoming. What is becoming? This is divine's self-expression. This is divine's self-manifestation. Bhagavanor obhibhakti, Bhagavanor prakash, Bhagavanor atma obhibhakti. The world is not created by the divine. Rather, divine has become this manifestation. Divine has become this universe. So the worldly knowledge, practical knowledge, psychological knowledge also help us to grow, but not in the being, but in the becoming. But India also recognizes that the worldly knowledges can be aids to real knowledge. Not only it does not reject, it admits that even this worldly knowledge can be aids to real knowledge. And it will be discussed tomorrow. So with this, that the worldly knowledge also help us to grow, but not in the being, not in the supreme being, not in our true being, but in the becoming. That is to say, in this manifestation, not in our true being. So India recognizes all sorts of knowledge, but in the true sense of the word, what is knowledge? Knowledge implies a state that lies beyond the intellectual activity of the mind. Knowledge then means a luminous growth into what? Into higher state of being. This is not only the present state of my being is not the soul being of my life. I have higher state of being also, higher states of being. Because mind, beyond mind there is a higher mind. Beyond higher mind there is an illumined mind. Beyond illumined mind there is an intuitive mind. Beyond intuitive mind there is an overmind. So luminous growth into the higher states of being. And then knowledge is called a light. And what we do with that light helps us to grow in our true being, not in our external being. External being is only nature's creation. The true being is inside me, and which is my soul, my individual soul, my antaratma, my jivatma. I have to grow into my true being. For that I need a light, and knowledge is light. So knowledge is a growth, knowledge is a state beyond intellectual activity of the mind. Knowledge is a light by which we grow into our true being. But that does not mean that India does not recognize other worldly knowledge. India admits that there are different types of knowledge: scientific knowledge, psychological knowledge, philosophical knowledge, ethical knowledge, and so on. And these worldly knowledges also help us to grow. Not only the real knowledge, but also the worldly knowledges help us to grow, but not in our true being or not in the supreme being. We cannot become Brahman by our worldly knowledge. We can grow with this worldly knowledge only in the becoming. And then India says, but this worldly knowledge can be aid to real knowledge. Not only that, tomorrow we will be discussing this intellectual knowledge can be transformed into true knowledge. India has the discipline. India has the pedagogy. Even the worldly knowledge can be transformed into real knowledge. So till tomorrow, let me allow to conclude here. If you want to interact, we can interact minutes. Now the platform is open for discussion. Thank you and namaskar to all. Anything, if you want to discuss, we can discuss. Anything relating to today's discussions. Any confusion, anything you can discuss.
So maybe we need to unmute the mics.
What?
So maybe the host need to unmute the mics.
Yes. You unmute the mic and you can ask your confusion.
Sir.
Right.
Sir, মই প্ৰসঞ্জিত চক্ৰৱৰ্তী কৈ আছো গুৱাহাটীৰ পৰা।
হয়, কওক।
স্যাৰ, এটা প্ৰশ্ন আছিল হিতনাখন ইন ৰেফাৰেন্স টু দ্য লাষ্ট লেকচাৰ।
হয়।
আপুনি কৈছিলে যে এই আমাৰ যেটো ধৰ্ম সংস্কৃতি যেতিয়া ধৰাতলে গৈছিলে একদম তেতিয়া একদম যেতিয়া মানে একদম ইট স্টাৰ্টস দ্য লোয়েষ্ট পইণ্ট তেতিয়া সেইন্টস লাইক ৰামকৃষ্ণ তাৰপিছত ঋষি মহাঋষি অৰবিন্দ তাৰপিছত আমাৰ শংকৰদেৱ ইহঁত আহি পেলাই বচাইছে। নাও can this be correlated with the Gita shlok yada yada dharmasya glanir bhavati bharate?
Not exactly, but there is a similarity. But that context was a very different context, and that context will be discussed when I will be taking up the discussion on Bhagavad Gita. Not exactly, but you can say there is a similarity. You can that they are not identical situation, but you can at least term that yes, they are similar situation, because Ramakrishna was himself an avatar, but Vivekananda was Vibhuti. So Krishna was jada jada hi dharmasya glani bhavati refers to descent of avatar. But yes, definitely Ramakrishna was the avatar. So with respect to Ramakrishna, you may call that was an identical situation, but rather it will be wise to opine or wise to consider it as a similar situation. Okay. I am not using the word identical, but it may be a similar situation. Okay
sir. আৰু এটা মানে জাস্ট এটা পয়েন্ট আছে স্যার, এই যে তিনটা সিস্টেম মানে যেটি মানে এজ অফ স্পিৰিট দিছে, থ্ৰী এটো স্যার টাইম লাইনটো যদি অলপ দিব পাৰে।
নহয়, মই আগতে আপোনালোকক ডিসকাশন কৰোতে এটা কথা যেটো কোৱা হৈছে, এটা ব্ৰডলি মই যদি আপোনালোকক ভগাবলৈ খোজো, ইয়াতটো যেতিয়া আমি পাঁচটা যুগৰ কথা কৈছো, যেতিয়া আমি আঠটা ভিশনৰ কথা কৈছিলো, আঠটা ভিশনৰ কথা কওঁতে সেইটো আমি ক্লাৰিফাই কৰি দিছো কি বুলি, যে এজ অফ স্পিৰিট বুলি কলে আমি কি বুলি কম, আইডিয়াল ইন দি বেদস এণ্ড উপনিষদ। সো বৈদিক এণ্ড উপনিষদিক যুগ, উপনিষদিক পিৰিয়ড is the spiritual age.
Sir, around কিমান হাজাৰ বছৰ পুৰণি হ'ব?
কিমান হাজাৰ বছৰ আপুনি যদি এইটো খুদে, কোনোবাই আমাৰ ইতিহাস 10 বছৰীয়া 10,000 বছৰ পুৰণা বুলি কয়, কোনোবাই 5,000 বছৰীয়া বুলি কয়। গতিকে মই আপোনাক এক্সেক্টলি এটা মই নিৰ্দিষ্ট 5,000 10,000 বুলি ৰাফলি ধৰি লওক। আপোনাৰ যিটো আমি কৈছো দি এজ অফ দি স্পিৰিট, যিটো বৈদিক যুগ আৰু বৈদিক যুগৰ পিছত যিটো উপনিষদৰ যুগ, তাৰ পিছত যিটো এজ অফ ধৰ্মৰ যুগৰ কথা কৈছো, এইটো আপুনি অলমোষ্ট ত্ৰেতা যুগ বুলি ধৰক, মহাকাব্যৰ যুগ, ৰামায়ণ মহাভাৰতৰ যুগ। আৰু তাৰ পিছতো স্পেচিফিক কোৱাই আছে ক্লাছিকেল এজ অফ সংস্কৃত লিটাৰেচাৰ, অৰ্থাৎ last the 1000 years before before the Vaishnavite period, অৰ্থাৎ আপুনি ক'ব পাৰে from AD, from আমাৰ 1200 খ্ৰীষ্টাব্দ মানলৈ, খ্ৰীষ্টাব্দ প্ৰথম শতিকাৰ পৰা 1200 খ্ৰীষ্টাব্দ মানলৈকে এইটো হ'ল সংস্কৃত সাহিত্যৰ ধ্ৰুপদী যুগ। আৰু আমি যিটো বৈষ্ণৱাইট যুগৰ কথা কৈছিলো, পুৰাণতান্ত্ৰিক যুগ, এইটো এই ক্লাছিকেল এজৰ ভিতৰতে বা তাৰ পিছৰ পৰৱৰ্তী সময়ছোৱা, তাৰ পিছৰ পৰৱৰ্তী সময়ছোৱা। আৰু যিটো উত্তৰ কালৰ বৈষ্ণৱ যুগৰ কথা কৈছো, সেইটো প্ৰায় 1500 শতিকা 1600 শতিকা বুলি ধৰিব পাৰে আপুনি। হ'ব
হ'ব স্যাৰ, থ্যাংক ইউ বেলেগে সোধক।
Sir,
হয়,
am I audible, sir?
yes.
Sir, this is information, knowledge, and wisdom. You have mentioned that there are different types of knowledge: scientific knowledge, psychological, technical, worldly knowledge, and all these knowledge are required for development. It's a part of development process. So, do you want to say that without transformation or illusion, with the scientific or technical or practical knowledge, this development is not possible, is it?
What I am not getting your point. Be little bit precise.
Now, sir, apni jitu koise the knowledge, it is illusion or transformation. I have to be sense.
Hi.
Again, normally I mean there are different type of knowledge: scientific knowledge, technical knowledge, and practical knowledge. All these are also one type of knowledge.
Yes.
Now, entire knowledge is required for the process of development.
আচ্ছা, কওকচোন বাৰু। হয়,
এতিয়া আপুনি ক'ব খুজিছে নেকি যে without transformation, without illusion, this a person cannot be a part of actual development process? Is it?
প্ৰথম কথা, মই ডেভেলপমেণ্ট ৱৰ্ডটো পাৰহেপছ I have never used.
Yes, you have not used, but knowledge is a
মই
part of
ডেভেলপমেণ্ট
development.
শব্দটো মই ইউজেই কৰা নাই। So
Right.
ডেভেলপমেণ্ট এইটোৱেই হ'ল গ্ৰয়িং ইন দি বিকামিং। ডেভেলপমেণ্ট, ইকনমিক ডেভেলপমেণ্ট, পলিটিকেল ডেভেলপমেণ্ট, ছচিয়লজিকেল ডেভেলপমেণ্ট, সেইবাবে কৈছে worldly knowledge helps us to grow in the becoming. But this knowledge cannot help me to grow in my true being. This type of worldly knowledge cannot help me to change myself, because a scientist can also be a rapist.
Yeah.
A scientist can also be a rapist. But definitely this worldly knowledge are required for the development of, are required for material development of the world. But this worldly knowledge cannot fulfill my life. এই worldly knowledge বিলাকেই মোক জীৱনৰ সাৰ্থকতালৈ লৈ যাব নোৱাৰে বুলি ভাৰতে ভাবে। কিন্তু তাৰ পিছতে একাষাৰ কথা কৈছিলো, it will be explained tomorrow, যে worldly knowledge বিলাকো কিন্তু আমাৰ আসল নলেজৰ সহায়কাৰী হ'ব পাৰে, সহায়কাৰী কৰিব জানিব লাগিব। সেই জনাৰ যিটো বিদ্যা, সেইটো ভাৰতবৰ্ষই জানে। How worldly knowledge can be transformed into real knowledge. India has the pedagogy. Pedagogy মানে শিক্ষা বিজ্ঞান। শিক্ষা বিজ্ঞান আছে। গতিকে আমি এতিয়ালৈকে ইমানখিনিয়ে ডিসকাশন কৰিছো যে আমাৰ যিটো আসল নলেজে আমাৰ আসল যিটো মই মানুহ হোৱাত মোক সহায় কৰে। আসল যিটো নলেজ হ'ল এটা পোহৰ, এটা জ্যোতি, এটা আলোক, which is nothing to do with the material development of the world, which can help me to grow in my true being. The real knowledge is a luminous growth. The real knowledge is a state that lies beyond the intellectual activity of the mind. কিন্তু ভাৰতবৰ্ষই আসল জ্ঞানৰ বাহিৰেও লগতে এই কথাও স্বীকাৰ কৰে যে এই জ্ঞানৰ বাহিৰেও there are other types of knowledge also. আৰু তাৰে আমি উদাহৰণ কেতবোৰ দিছো। তেনেহলে other types of knowledge বোৰে আমাক কি কৰে? আমাক এই পৃথিৱীৰ মাজত বিকশিত হোৱাত সহায় কৰে। আপুনি ক'ব পাৰে যে ডেভেলপমেন্ট, মেটেৰিয়েল ডেভেলপমেন্ট অফ দি ৱৰ্ল্ড, but this worldly knowledge cannot transform the world, cannot lead the world into a higher state of consciousness. যেনেকে আমি পশুৰ পৰা মানুহ হৈছো, মানুহৰ পৰা আমাক মানুহৰ ওপৰলৈকে লৈ যাব নোৱাৰে। আমাক কেৱল অন্ন বস্ত্ৰ বাসস্থান, আহাৰ নিদ্ৰা মৈথুন, আমাৰ কেৰিয়াৰ, আমাৰ অৰ্থ, আমাৰ ক্ষমতা, আমাৰ খ্যাতি এইবোৰত আমাক সহায় কৰিব পাৰিব। কিন্তু তাৰ অৰ্থ এইটো নহয় যে আনকি এই ৱৰ্ল্ডলি নলেজবোৰকো ভাৰতবৰ্ষৰ হাতত টেকনলজি আছে, হাউ ৱৰ্ল্ডলি নলেজ কেন বি ট্ৰান্সফৰ্ম ইনটু ৰিয়েল নলেজ। তাৰ পেডাগজিটো আছে, আমি সেই বিষয়ে আলোচনা কৰিম। এই বিষয়েও আমি আলোচনা কৰিম। আমি আজি ইমানখিনি আলোচনা কৰিছো। আপুনি এতিয়া অলপ ক্লিয়াৰ হৈছে নে বাৰু?
ঠিক আছে, ঠিক আছে, ঠিক আছে।
আৰু কোনোবাই কিবা সুধিব?
দাদা কোশ্চেন নহয়, এটা অনুভৱ, কোশ্চেন নহয়, এটা ফিলিংস, মানে আই ফিল সামথিং যে বিং এ টিচাৰ ইমান দিন ধৰি খালি ল'ৰা ছোৱালীক ইনফৰমেশ্যনহে দিলো, নলেজ দিব পৰা নাই।
নহয়, আপুনি লগত ইন্টেলেকচুৱেল নলেজ দিছে, অকল নট অনলি ইনফৰমেশ্যন, ৱৰ্ল্ডলি নলেজ দিছে, ৱৰ্ল্ডলি নলেজ দিছে। কিন্তু অম্বিকাগিৰিয়ে এটা কবিতাত এষাৰ লাইন লিখি থৈ গৈছে। কি কৈছে? ভিতৰত পুহি দুষ্ট পিশাচ, বাহিৰত তাকে মোহিনী কলাৰ ছবি। যিজন মানুহে ভিতৰত দুষ্ট পিশাচক পুহি ৰাখি বাহিৰত যদি ভাল ছবি আঁকে, he has the knowledge, he has the artistic knowledge, but he has not grown into his true being. He is not getting light.
Yes.
And that is why তেওঁ ভিতৰত এটা দুষ্ট পিশাচ পুহি ৰাখিছে। গতিকে আমি যদি ভিতৰৰ পৰা দুষ্ট পিশাচটোক নোহোৱা কৰিবলৈ বিচাৰো, তেনেহলে আমাক আলোক লাগিব, আমাক জ্যোতি লাগিব। ৱৰ্ল্ডলি নলেজে মোক হেল্প কৰিব পাৰিব only in the manifestation, only in the becoming, only in the universe, only in the world. ইয়াৰ আগৰ এষ্টিম পাৰ্টিচিপেণ্টছনে কোৱা দি মেটেৰিয়েল ডেভেলপমেণ্টত আমাক সহায় কৰিব পাৰিব। হ'বনে? এই কথাখিনি মই কৈছো। আমি এই বিষয়ে আৰু পাতিবলগীয়া আছে। আমি আজি মাত্ৰ ইমানখিনিলৈকে আলোচনা কৰিছো, কালি আমি শেষ কৰিব পাৰিম। আৰু তাৰ পিছত যেতিয়া আমি ইণ্ডিয়াছ আইডিয়া অফ এডুকেশ্যন, ইণ্ডিয়াছ আইডিয়া অফ পেডাগজিৰ আমি যিটো ছেগমেণ্ট ল'ম, তেতিয়া আমি নলেজৰ বিষয়ে আকৌ ভিন ভিন ধৰণে আলোচনা কৰিম। এইটো মই বৰ্তমান প্ৰিলিমিনাৰী ডিছকাশ্যন কৰিছো ইন দি কনটেক্সট অফ দি ফ্ৰেজ ইণ্ডিয়ান নলেজ চিষ্টেম। Organizer, perhaps we may conclude. It seems nobody will be interacting further. কিবা ক'ব কৈছে যদি কওক।
Namaste. Namaste, sir. I like to ask one question, that is the main difference of wisdom and knowledge. Is it a part and parcel of intellect? If intellect is the main, then wisdom is the super.
Yes, actually this part, according to my plan, would have been discussed tomorrow. Actually, this real knowledge is called wisdom.
Okay. Thank you.
This real knowledge, which helps us to grow in a state that lies beyond the intellectual activity of the mind. Which is a light, which helps me to grow in the true being. This real knowledge is called pragya, is called wisdom. I would have been explaining this thing tomorrow, but as you have asked the question, the real knowledge is called wisdom.
Thank you.
Information knowledge is intellectual knowledge, information intellectual knowledge, or worldly knowledge, scientific knowledge, psychological knowledge, knowledge about a particular subject, and then wisdom. And this real knowledge is called wisdom. So in the higher sense of the word knowledge and the meaning of wisdom are identical.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes. I thank you, sir. I
Thank you.
like to get this sort of cream word from your end,
Thank you.
because
Thank you.
I was for a long time thinking the differentiation between the wisdom and our what is called spirituality.
Knowledge. So real knowledge in the profounder Indian sense is called wisdom.
Okay.
And this is a luminous growth. Wisdom is a luminous growth. Wisdom is a state beyond intellectual activity of the mind. Wisdom is a light which helps me to grow into my true being. Okay. So
Thank you.
organizer, we may perhaps conclude now.
Thank you, sir. If anyone has any more queries, kindly send it to the WhatsApp group. Thank you, sir, for such an enriching speech regarding knowledge. As it is time, we can wrap up the session with a note of gratefulness to each and everyone, and special thanks to and regards to our respective resource person, Professor Diganto Vishwa Sharma, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you and namaskar to all, and we will be joining tomorrow at the same time. Thank you. Till then, good night.
Thank you. Thank you, and good night.
Thank you, sir.